It was very exciting to work this way and see what all these people make with their hands to tell the story. It's very beautiful just to watch somebody doing that.
My name's Andy Gent, I'm head of puppets on Fantastic Mr. Fox. The whole process for us starts with a design drawing. We've had a team of people working on character design and development with Wes, doing illustrations and prevising all of the characters.
We started with real animals and a couple of sketch artists and just did a lot of drawings and presented those to Wes. He started narrowing down the search for these characters. I think we're always keeping in mind the actors who are playing the characters. We did a lot of maquettes, a lot of sketches, and finally brought them down to the essence of the characters that you see in the finished film.
After quite an extensive amount of character drawing, we'll start to block them out in plasticine, so we'll actually then turn them into a three-dimensional sculpt. As we sort of get to a good shape with things, we'll start to add more detail to it, more textures, until it's a fully finished sculpt with all of the details, basically all the character in. Once we've got it into a nice shape, we'll remove all the sort of sculpted clothes to get the bare parts of the puppet. And then we'll do a mould for it that we can then subsequently get the finished armature out and the finished silicone or foam latex or combination puppet. This is a basic armature. All of these things are the hard sort of mechanical parts that go underneath. So once you've got the sculpt, we can fit these in so we can hit where all of the joints would hit onto a skeleton and start building it up. And then when we're happy with that and it fits perfectly to the mould, we'll start making these little grip points and shapes that fit onto the armature so the animators can feel where things are, and it helps the costumes not be crushed too much and keeps the weight down of the puppet as well, so it sort of blocks it all out. We do have, which is particular to this, an awful lot of different scales.
Those guys are going to work soon.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Yeah, they do.
We're pleased with those.
Here we have different scale characters. So this is a full scale Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox, Badger. Then here's our half scale puppets, which we can use for different size of sets. And then sometimes we'll use these micro scale puppets, whereas the full scale mouse is about the same size as the micro badger, as you can see. But there's also this scale, which is we say mini micro, which can be used for very, very wide shots. This little puppet can be animated.
We've had some new joints which are incredibly small, so 1.6mm doubles as affectionately known as. But they'll go into some of the smaller parts, and then we might use some wire with that to get the rest of the puppet to move. But when you get down to our really tiny puppets, the mini micros, they're just a little wire armature, and they're not much bigger than your sort of thumbnail, but they help us get these truly enormous sort of set pieces out.
Oh wow, look at that thing. It's got all these little pieces, these little joints, really, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's sort of a little
Can
bit...
I make it dance or
Yeah, you can, yeah, you should be able to move him around.
How the hell?
It's got wire legs and arms.
Man, oh man, so now what are you gonna do? Then you put silicone, this is what you pour a body for it?
Yeah, that's the mould, I've painted it in.
That's the mold. So he goes in there, take that little fox. The casket, Amontillado. There you go. Micro Mr. Fox.
You're starting to get a puppet that looks kind of human or sort of animal shaped. From then you're getting into kind of finishing processes with it. You'll notice on all the characters they've got little bits of hair at the side or in ears or on eyebrows or on beards. That's all punched in one at a time just to give that extra little bit of reality. The human characters have got a very realistic skin qualities to it, and Boggis is quite pink, but you'll see the sort of broken veins in his cheeks and stuff like that. Quite a lot of work's gone into developing those and getting that look for them. So the hair's a really nice little addition to it. With the animal characters, they've actually got fur as a covering to them. We've had to be really quite careful where we've sourced things from, so everything's come from repurposed backgrounds. So we've got quite a lot of goat and rabbit and a little bit of kangaroo. It's crept in there as well. For the foxes, of course, they age quite a lot over the show. So he'll start when you see him first as a young fox without any grey at his temples, and then as he gets older he gets little white bits added in, so we'll punch little sort of grey hairs basically at the side of his head. We'll have made the costumes here and adapted most of the costumes here. The design process of that has been evolving throughout the show, keeping the sort of nice shapes and the square shoulders and all those things that Wes likes and asks for. We have to then affect the costumes to fit what sort of things they've been doing. They'll also get dirty from the animators. They get handled, of course, an awful lot. It's the equivalent of wearing your clothes for a year and then having somebody move them around all over you all day long. They'd soon really get quite filthy. You have to take them off, clean them, and then maybe put back the right amount of dirt to how they should be, and then put them back onto the puppet. So they get quite a lot of wear and tear. You're really, trying to make these things to last, or make plenty of spares so we can just keep swapping them over when they run out or break. This is Mr. Fox. He's what we call upstairs a hero puppet, because he's capable of doing everything. Inside him is a full ball and socket armature. He's got a foam skin and he's got some silicone hands and feet. He's still got his tail on. This is before he's had his tail shot off by the farmers. But everything's wired and in his fingers, so he can do all of the little poses the animators need to do. He can grip things, so he can open, close his fingers and pick things up off the table, grab the chickens, all the things he's got to do in the movie. In the face, he's got a full mech inside here. So this is an exposed mechanism for our hero, Mr. Fox puppet. So you can pose him around. He's got his eyebrows, you can see there. There's the little paddles that move the flesh on the side of his teeth to give some of the sort of nice little expressions around there. His nose that can move around so he can sniff the air. His little front teeth, so just to get those tiny little shapes around there. And the cheek paddles. So the combinations of all of those things, it does make them really expressive. With the combination of the cheek there, the snarl there, tip in his jaw, tip in his head, you can get all manner of expressions really quite quickly.
These characters look so emotional when you get them in a really tight close-up. I mean, we have our puppets, which are, the puppet heads are this big. Sometimes in a close-up that is just eyebrows to mouth. And they're not humans, but there is something that you can kind of feel when you look into them.
If what I think is happening, it better not be.
They're constantly developing. There's one character, Jarvis Cocker's character, Petey. We'd sort of built him for what we knew at the start. And as the film's developed, we've needed to give him a bigger range of motion. So we've had to go back into him and then add extra joints and develop his basic sort of armature. It's a development process. They're all like prototypes, which you start with, and as things go right with them, great, and some things you might find that, well, we don't need that, we don't use it, or some things just need to be changed for a new demand that comes in. So we'll constantly have to work with that and try and facilitate it as quickly as we can.
I think that these puppets are just amazingly well-crafted and amazing to look at. There's something that kind of brings you into them, and the real textures on them. You're not like looking at a hard sculpted shape. You're looking at something that is crafted by hand, and I think that brings in sort of a layer of nostalgia and emotion that is probably hard to describe, but when you see it, you'll feel it.